Greetings, and welcome to OroCommerce's video tutorial series. This is Rhonda with Oro Inc., and today I'll be demonstrating how to create tax rules within OroCommerce. Tax management in OroCommerce helps sellers ensure compliance with tax rules and regulations for online sales. In our previous video, we discussed tax codes, product codes, customer codes, and jurisdictions. We also demonstrated how to apply tax codes to products and customers. For our last demo, for simplicity, I was only working with 2 customers and 2 products. Our example included a non-exempt customer code for customers, which means they will have to pay their state sales tax on any taxable items purchased. Additionally, we created a reseller category for customers who don't need to pay any taxes. For product tax codes, we created tax codes for both taxable and non-taxable items. For more information on creating customer tax codes, product tax codes, and jurisdictions, please see our video in the media library. For this demonstration, we'll show how to create tax rules to bind these customers to these specific taxes. We'll examine the following examples. A non-exempt customer paying tax for their state on taxable items. A non-exempt customer who isn't subject to sales tax on non-taxable items such as food or medical supplies. And a customer who is exempt from taxes who's not paying taxes on taxable items. As a prerequisite, we've assigned a customer to a non-exempt category and another to a reseller or exempt category. For products, we've added one product to the taxable item category and another to the non-taxable item category. Now it's time to create tax rules to bind these customers to the proper sales taxes. For our first example, we'll show a non-exempt customer paying tax for their state on taxable items. Let's examine our Washington, D.C. customer first. We have set this customer up in a jurisdiction which pays 5.75% sales tax based on his zip code in Washington, D.C. Now we'll create a rule to bind this customer to those taxes so they're properly taxed at every checkout. To create a tax rule, navigate to the Taxes menu and use the drop-down to select Tax Rules. To create a new tax rule, click the Create Tax Rule button. All of these fields are required in order to make a tax rule. In the Customer Tax Code field, use the drop-down to select a tax code. For our example, we'll use the non-exempt tax code, as this customer is not exempt from paying taxes. In the Product Tax Code, use the drop-down to select Taxable Items. This means that this rule will only tax the items that are in the taxable category, and will not tax items which may have a non-taxable product tax code. In the Jurisdiction field, use the drop-down to select Washington, D.C. In the Tax field, select the Washington, D.C. tax code we created in the previous video. We created this to be 5.75%. You can add a description if necessary. OroCommerce considers each zip code for a customer to calculate the specific tax rate during checkout. It's important for jurisdictions to be accurate. When you're finished, click the Save and Close button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. As an example, we'll pull up an order for this customer to show how they are being taxed. Navigate to the Sales menu and use the drop-down to select Orders. OroCommerce calculates taxes per line item so it's easy to see which items are being charged tax and which ones are not. Edit the order by hovering over the ellipse and clicking on the Edit button. As you can see, we've ordered 10 of the pricing labeler, which is a taxable item. And if you scroll over to the right, you'll see that this item is being charged 5.75% for Washington, D.C. sales tax. For our next example, we'll demonstrate a non-exempt customer who isn't subject to sales tax on non-taxable items such as medical supplies. For this example, we can use this same customer. While this customer is required to pay taxes under normal circumstances, with the tax rule we're about to create, no taxes will be charged to any products that were given the non-taxable item products tax code. To create this tax rule, navigate to the Taxes menu and use the drop-down to select Tax Rules. Click the Create Tax Rule button. Use the drop-down to select a customer tax code. For our example, we'll use non-exempt, as typically customers in this category are required to pay sales tax. In the product tax code, use the drop-down to select non-taxable items. Next, use the drop-down to select a tax jurisdiction. Since we're using our same customer example from Washington, D.C., we can select Washington, D.C. In the tax field, use the drop-down to select non-taxable items, which we previously created to be at 0%. Add a description. And when you're finished, click the Save and Close button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. We can demonstrate this by navigating back to the customer's sales order and adding this non-taxable item. From our last example, you can see that this customer is being charged 5.5% sales tax on the taxable item. Now we'll add the non-taxable item. Now scroll over to the row totals, and you can see this customer is not being taxed for the non-taxable medical equipment. Now, for our final example, we'll create a tax rule for customers who are not subject to any sales taxes. For example, we've already created a customer code for reseller and a tax code for reseller with the tax percentage configured at 0. This tax code must be applied to the customer for the tax rule to take effect. Click on the breadcrumb to return back to the tax rules grid. Click the Create Tax Rule button, and use the drop-down to select a customer tax code. For our example, we'll choose the reseller code we created in our last demo. In the product tax code field, use the drop-down to select taxable items. Now we'll select a tax jurisdiction. For our example, our customer lives in the Los Angeles area. In the tax field, instead of choosing the tax for the Los Angeles County, select the reseller tax code because resellers are not subject to tax. When you're finished, click the Save and Close button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Now we can demonstrate this by viewing our customer's order when adding both taxable and non-taxable items. As you can see, neither of these products are being taxed because the customer is a reseller. In addition to creating tax rules manually, you can also use the Import and Export button to import lists of tax rules in CSV format. For more information on importing and exporting, please see our related video in the OroCRM Media Library. Thanks for watching. For more video tutorials, please check out our website at www.orocommerce.com/media-library.